Hello, everyone. Welcome. We have closed caption below. Welcome, Speak Out. Thank you so much for being here today. We are so happy to be doing this programming with you and to hear more. Speak Out is celebrating their 50th anniversary, 50 years of telling our stories, of creating connection, of creating space for our community to be out and to talk about our experiences. So thank you again. And I will pass the baton to Ellen, my neighbor. I could probably, if I look that way hard enough, I could probably see your house. So thank you so much for being here. Take it away.
Thanks, Thais. This is so wonderful that the Chamber has invited us here to speak with people about our anniversary and about the work that we do. Really thankful for that. It's great being a part of the Chamber and meeting such interesting folks in the community. I'm Ellen Rudstrom. I'm the Executive Director of SpeakOUT Boston. My pronouns are she, her. Today, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be kind of giving you some slides and information about the organization. And then Joseph Alcantara is going to share a personal story with you so that you can kind of see what we typically do when we're out speaking to our audiences. And then also Christy Lealis is going to talk a bit more about our DEIB initiative at SpeakOUT and how our work kind of coincides with other people's DEIB work in their own organizations. So that's what to expect today. I'm going to share my screen so we can get into the slideshow. So SpeakOUT is the oldest LGBTQ plus speakers bureau in the country. We were founded in 1972, which is, yes, why we are celebrating 50 years this year. You can see up there in the top left that we have announced our new logo as part of our 50th year anniversary with a more inclusive, colorful image. So that is fun to be able to do that as well. So back in 1972, a group of lesbians that were part of the Daughters of Bilitis and a group of gay men that were part of the Homophile Society of Boston, they got together. They were doing their own independent work, and they got together and they said, you know, we really need a speakers bureau. We need to be able to tell our stories and in a very personal way so that people see who we are as human beings, as at that time, it was gays and lesbians who were mostly involved at the very beginning. And they really believed in the power of a personal story, that if you put a face on someone, if you heard their story, then it was much harder to hate or mistrust people. And that was kind of where the organization started. This is our mission. We are a community of speakers working to create a world free of homo, bi, transphobia and other forms of prejudice by telling the truths of our lives. And the way we do that, we conduct educational programs about the LGBTQ plus community and the issues within our community. We empower individuals and organizations to effectively use public education. And that means we do private trainings for people as well as our own trainings for speakers so that they can learn how to use storytelling as well. For example, we often work with queer youth groups to help them tell their stories. We've also, in New Hampshire, we trained a whole bunch of trans activists when New Hampshire was working on their trans rights bill. So those kind of things are very important for us as part of our work in the community. And we share our lives and experiences in order so that others who are dealing with sexuality and gender identity have a space to connect with. And we often do within our engagements, connect with other folks in a very close way. And we educate within communities we represent about issues that divide us. and through public forums and other events. Now, a lot of people think of us as just going to schools, and that is definitely something we have done since the beginning. But we do a lot more than that. This is actually, I love this photo because it really captures the quality of an engagement sometimes, with that spontaneity and the connection with the audience. This was at Walnut Hill School for the Arts. And but besides schools, we also do faith communities, businesses, public libraries, community organizations, all sorts of spaces. Now, we love the in-person engagements. It really is wonderful to be able to talk to people, especially after an engagement, because then sometimes people come up and talk to us, ask us more personal questions. We can really provide some really good information to folks in those moments. But we had never done an online engagement before the pandemic, and now it is definitely a part of our toolkit. And we really enjoy the online engagements that we've been able to do. For one thing, it has allowed us to go beyond Boston, and that is really great. These are just a few places that, to give you examples of places that we go to. The Goddard House Assisted Living, that was our first live in-person event that we did last summer after the pandemic started. And that was really wonderful. And we've started to do a few more engagements within senior living facilities. And I think it's so important to make sure that those facilities are LGBTQ plus friendly. The other one down below, Groton Public Library, and actually Joseph was a part of that one. You can see people were still using masks. This was a fabulous engagement because the students in the town, actually one key student, she did a project for a class, and she decided that she was going to bring us to their library to do this event. It was a really wonderful youth-led event. And then also Bain and Company, we've been working with Bain over several years, and we've done in-person as well as online engagements with them. I did want to mention too, I kind of forgot to go over when I kind of glossed over our history a little bit, that we've really been involved in the storytelling. We've been involved with a lot of the issues that have been hot button issues for our community in terms of marriage equality and LGBTQ plus people in the military and other issues that have gone on, where often through a very personal story, we can get to those issues in a really different way. During the Prop 3 debate and referendum here in Massachusetts, our trans speakers were amazing messengers, and people who really, through telling their personal stories, opened up a dialogue with so many people to get a better understanding of why those rights were so important to protect. So those are the kind of things that we take very seriously in the work that we do. I also wanted to mention that we were involved with a cable TV show started in 1993 through 2007, called SpeakOUT TV. It was on a Boston cable show. And every week they would be talking about queer topics, all of those kind of advocacy topics, plus just personal things. And there was when they had the gay Olympics, all those different sort of things that would go on in the social life of the queer community and also the political life. So those are also really, really fun things for our members to be a part of. So in terms of our engagements, we really see such a great part of this is to provide a safe space, and it's to ask questions that they may not have anywhere else to ask them. Our motto is ask us anything, and we really do emphasize that in our engagements. We don't want people to feel like, they're going to say the wrong word, they're going to insult someone. we encourage them to really to ask the things that they may feel uncomfortable with. And we want to provide a respectful answer. We will tell people why something would be insulting or not a wise thing to ask someone if you don't know them. We'll explain that for you, but we really do want to provide that safe space for folks. A lot of times we're supplying resources for people, for LGBTQ youth and adults, but also their families, allies. Often now, a lot of people within our audiences want desperately to find out how they can support our community. And so a lot of discussion is around ways that they can be allies, ways that they can support individuals, support organizations and other things that will really help the community. And obviously we want to open minds and change attitudes. And that has always been a part of our work in a very personal way. So our speaker trainings, we usually do 2 large speaker trainings per year in the spring and the fall. We have our next one coming up on April 9th. And the kind of skill building that we do with this is really are really great things that anyone of any experience level can benefit from. Definitely sort of learning about the different ways of shaping a story, overcoming fear, working with your co-speaker are parts of just ordinary public speaking. With working with your co-speaker, it's a really important part of Speak Out that we don't send people out usually individually. We usually have 2 or more speakers together. We really like that emphasis on that people's experience is different, and it's really important to have different perspectives within the community represented. And also answering difficult questions. It's actually one of the most fun parts of the training when we do the hot seat, and all of the experienced trainers answer difficult questions that people come up with. And you get to see examples of how to deal with when someone asks you something about your sex life, or someone asks you something about religion, or why do you believe you're going to hell, or that kind of thing. Some very hot button issues. And so we really go over how to deal with those, how to have a great tone when a respectful tone when you are answering questions like that. So besides the work that we do in the large group, the essential work of working on this individual stories go on in small breakout sessions. And those are really great opportunities. Within our all-day training, you get 2 opportunities to tell your story in that group setting. So it's wonderful to see actually the growth even between the morning and the afternoon breakout sessions, and how much you can really improve your story in that little time. It's very important to kind of figure out the arc of your story. Some people come to the training and say, I don't know if I have a story. And it's like, for us, we're like, everyone has a story. There are so many important parts of your life that you might not have thought as a part of a narrative yet, but those are really important things that can be put together and explain a lot about who you are and who you are as a queer person, and why that is important for others to understand. Everyone learns the Speak Out format, and that's sort of important for especially people who might have lots of public speaking skills already. And so they've got that really under control, but just learning about our format and how we do it, and some of the important principles of our engagements. And then, as well as I mentioned, they get to practice the answering challenging questions. So April 9th, it's coming up, our speaker training. We're very excited that we will be doing this in person and not online this time. There's still plenty of time to register. There are some spaces left. You do need to be vaccinated to participate, to prove your vaccination. And that is definitely very important. So I did want to take just a moment right now to ask, did anybody have any questions about anything that I had included? I'll take a second if anybody wants to put something in the chat or the Q&A.
There's a question. How much is the training?
Good question. So the standard fee is $75. We do have a senior and student fee of $35. That a lot of that will go to supplying food and materials for the training. If that is a burden, if the fee is a burden, please email me and we can arrange for a scholarship for you. Thank you for that question. And now I'm going to pass it over to Joseph. We'll have time for more questions later on if something come up, but Joseph is going to share his story with us. And Joseph, take it away.
Thanks, Ellen. Good afternoon, friends. It is my pleasure to be with all of you today. My name is Joseph, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. Before I start sharing my story, I'd like to invite you all to first pause and think of your greatest fear. You know that fear that makes you feel anxious, agitated, and terribly sick. And what if I tell you that that fear is about to happen now? How would you feel? And what would you do? That was the story of my life for 35 long years. 35 years of waking up every single morning filled with fear. The fear of being outed as gay. So this afternoon, I'll just be sharing with you 3 significant chapters to that long 35-year story. 3 mini chapters of my life to hopefully inspire you all to become a true ally of our community. And let's call it the 3 F's of Joseph. The first F, let's call that fear. It all starts with my background. I was born and raised in a very middle class and very conservative, devout Catholic family back home in a province in the Philippines. And at a very young age, I already felt that I was very different because my parents are very Catholic. They decided to put me in a very Catholic school that's very conservative as well, thinking that if they put me there and my brother will be set for life. But at the early onset of my age there, I became more comfortable in the company of girls. Performing arts became my haven instead of sports, for example. And I was deemed to be very effeminate and soft. That became an early onset of bullying amongst my classmates. And that fear eventually made me realize that I need to have survival instincts to fight that fear. And fortunately, I used my academics and excelling in extracurricular activities to hide that fear. I made sure that I'm always at the top of my class. I'm the class president, I'm the school paper editor, and I'm a high flyer. That served me well till I was in high school. But then that fear became more profound as I entered university, because that was a time that I got a self-confirmation that I was indeed attracted to the same sex. But I was still very much in denial that I was gay. Reason being, gays were portrayed in a very lowly manner back home and in a very disrespectful fashion. Think of it in the 1980s, wherein we didn't have any good role model to look up to in a very Catholic country like the Philippines. So that deeper fear stuck in my heart. And in addition to that, that fear of failure, fear of rejection, and fear of breaking my parents' heart became my walking reality. I cannot disappoint them. So I decided to just focus on my studies, finish early, and really start working and contribute to our household. And again, fortunately, that served me well. I finished university very quickly, and I was at top of my game. At the young age of 20, I started my corporate marketing career that led me to travel to 4 different countries as a marketing professional. I was able to support the family back home, but again, another fear of emptiness came in. And as a problem solver in me set in place again, I just realized that, you know what? I probably simply need to be in a straight relationship, get married, have a wife, have kids, and everything will be okay. But the ending was not good. I was able to break the heart of very two beautiful and innocent women in the process of dealing with that fear. Let's move on to the second chapter, and let's call that faith. For that 35 years, I was literally a walking time bomb inside. My inner world was shattered, but I am showing an almost perfect facade on the outside. I felt so deserted. I felt so sad. I felt that I was alone. And the only thing that I always channeled back to, fortunately, was the faith that I have. If there's one thing that I'll be thankful for to my parents when they brought me up in a very conservative manner, was that they've allowed me to learn the process and the relationship with my faith and my spirituality. For the first time, when I was so desperate in one crying night, I just found the courage to pray and to say for the first time to my God, sorry, God, but I am really gay. He was the first one that I outed myself to, and I asked for discernment to help me through the process. On my 36th birthday, I was traveling to Norway alone because I love traveling. And it was my mission during that year to see the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis. And in flight, when I was on my way for a good 12-hour flight, I decided to simply open my laptop and write my most heartfelt and honest email. And I decided to out myself on the 36th birthday to 30 most important people in my life on who I really am. And as I saw the miraculous Aurora Borealis on my 36th birthday, I also realized that I was reborn because the 30 people whom I responded, that I sent the email to, responded nothing with positivity, with love, and with support and understanding. And thankfully, I decided to put faith over fear during that time. And that eventually opened the door to a lot of great possibilities in my life. Finally, moving on to the last F, let's call that felicity. Felicity is a kind of happiness that you don't get from external things or external events. It's an immense joy and peace that you have in your heart that you decide to embrace. After coming out, after 35 years of struggle, after I embraced my uniqueness and my reality, I felt felicity. I lived in a very better situation and I reached my peak and I thrived. And that was also the time that I met my first boyfriend, who eventually became my fiance. And we got engaged at the very monumental 50th World Pride in New York City in front of Christopher Street and Stonewall. And it was done via Netflix with Queer Eye. And that guy is now my husband that I'm building forever with. And I also found a deeper purpose as I begin this journey with him that inspired me to write a book to help and chronicle my situation with other people who might be feeling the same thing. I couldn't be happier, and I am in true, deep felicity. So with those 3 stories, my only final message, and hopefully the takeaway for you all, would be, number 1, to please overcome fear. The fear of the unknown for the LGBTQ plus community by learning, finding out more, gaining awareness to what you do not know. And second is to embrace faith, faith in the good of people through acceptance, empathy for everyone's uniqueness. And finally, experience the true meaning of felicity. And that you can experience by being a blessing, by being a source of joy, and amplifying what love, peace, and understanding is all about. Thank you so much for listening, and always remember to make love win.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I forgot to mention that Joseph is, not only is he one of our active speakers, he's also on our training team and a new member of our board of directors. So thank you so much for sharing that. Does anyone have any questions for Joseph about his story? It's always interesting when you hear a story several times and you just sometimes hear different things at different times. And
May I ask a question?
absolutely.
So Joseph, thank you so much for sharing. First of all, I have a somewhat similar experience of growing up in Brazil and just surrounded by folks who were very conservative, and so I can relate to what you've described. What would you say? What would your advice be on the fear aspect? Because I think that's where a lot of folks get stuck. I think sometimes what would your maybe top two or top three steps that you would encourage folks to take when they are stuck in the fear portion of the story?
Mhm. Well, probably the three key things that I can say based on personal experience, and again, this is me based on what I know. One is that fear is a process, and fear allows us to overcome what we would really need to overcome to have an end goal. And the beauty of fear and knowing that it is a process is that there is an ending to it. And it is based on how we decide how that ending would be that the story would eventually unfold. So, especially for those people who might feel desperate and sad, thinking that it is the end, there's no solution, there is. And it all depends on your hands in terms of how you can manage that. Second would be is to really find your supporters and allies, whether you're, deciding to be out, to be honest, or to be out there in terms of what you truly feel about yourself. But finding the right support, the right allies, and those people who would truly love and understand and help you go through the process is very important. Yes, it is important for you to deal with it on your own, but it is more helpful, should we say, to deal with what you're feeling with the true people who can back you up and accept you with whatever situation you are in. And then finally, three, understanding that you are not alone and what your story today can make a massive difference to other people. When I talk about felicity earlier, yes, it is reality that I got that after I outed myself and then eventually found love and understanding from the people that I have right now in my life. But the real essence of it, and that's a reason why I'm becoming an active member in Speak Out, is because the real value of finding true meaning and happiness is when you serve other people. And I won't be able to have this kind of service and value if I did not undergo the process of fear. So I think being hopeful, understanding, and positive, and knowing that there is an end and there will be a good way to spin this will be an opportunity for those people who are in that situation to know that there is a good ending to it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joseph. And I will say that one of the big motivators for our speakers generally, and Joseph just spoke to that beautifully, is their own experience brings them to want to make things better for people in the future. In particular, like the connections when we do go out and speak to youth, to provide that hope and to provide a positive role model. Um, of change and growth in their own life. And, you know, many of our speakers say, you know, I never had a speak out when I was growing up, you know, where they were. And so they want to provide that service to other people. And it really is a big motivator for many of our speakers. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Joseph. And now I would like to pass it on to Christy Lealis, who is also one of our board members and is involved in the field of DEIB.
Thank you, Ellen, and thank you, Joseph, for sharing your story. It's such an interesting foundational kind of conversation to have now going into talking about DEIB, right, and how we kind of connect this to the broader work that we do to impact that change. So I'm here just to take a moment to highlight the work we're doing around, we call it diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So I'll use DEIB from here, both internally as an organization and, you know, how we play in that space externally, which you just got a sample of. So internally, we are forming a new DEIB committee, knowing, of course, over the past 50 years, this has looked different in, you know, over all those years. And there have always been attempts to ensure that we were really amplifying the most marginalized voices among us. But this year, we're taking into deliberate step of forming a new committee to allow and create that space and opportunity to prioritize work more broadly across things like our people, our processes, and our partnerships, right? So pretty much everything that we do. And that will include, of course, ensuring that we are, you know, doing what we can to best represent the intersectional identities and diversity within our community, how we govern ourselves and the way that we're running our organization, to make sure that we're continually focused on equity and to continue to learn and grow as both individuals and a community, right? So internally, that's what we're really focused on. And we do have, we're starting to launch some affinity groups and identity-based groups like Speak Out in Color, which Joseph is also a member. I hope you don't mind me sharing. Which has been a really great, you know, driver behind some of the work. And obviously, the more that we can create communities within our community and kind of all work and collaborate together, the more we'll drive that change. Now, externally, obviously, we want to continually highlight how what we have to offer as an organization probably can and maybe even should be more of an integrated aspect of businesses, DEIB, talent and development planning. And when I speak about that, I'm speaking from experience in that, as Ellen mentioned, this is what I do in my day job for my organization. I focus on inclusion and diversity at an educational technology company. And when I was considering, as part of that job, how to kind of best develop meaningful training and development opportunities for my internal community, it was important to focus on, I realized how important it was to focus on not just the typical kind of professional development trainings, you know, videos and workshops and whatnot, but also offer a variety of other formats and touch points, including a speaker series. So I actually launched a new DEIB speaker series along with the more formalized kind of professional development trainings in coordination with our employee resource groups and, you know, local organizations and people. And to be honest, working at an education company, I think it's, we know as an education company that folks have different learning preferences, right? And folks respond to different things that resonate for them. So it was really important for me to create what I would consider a more multi-pronged approach to that learning and development. And that included expanding access to not only facts and content, right, but also diverse experiences and stories. And that's, to be honest, exactly why I ended up getting involved with Speak Out, because they so clearly align with what I see as such a core learning and development opportunity for all of us as individuals and as a society. So, you know, I just say if your business is considering how to further learning and development around DEIB concepts, Speak Out offers a service that I hope more folks will consider to help move the needle. Because as you just got to experience with Joseph's story, you know, this will resonate in different ways than reading something on a page will, or reading an article about, you know, facts will. So the combination of all these different experiences to me is the strategy that I've kind of gone all in on in my area of the world. And I'm hoping to see that expand across other businesses. pass it back over to you, Ellen, unless there are any
I know
questions
I
from
was
me.
on mute. I forgot. Thank you so much, Christy, for going into that. Does anyone have any other questions about the organization or the training or individual things that you'd like that our speakers have mentioned?
Now I'm muted. There's a question that popped on. Hang on just one second. I can't quite see it.
Okay.
Um,
Do we get a certification? That's an interesting question. We don't consider it a certification. The process for becoming a speaker is you do attend the training, and then we usually have people observe or shadow one or two, depending on their skill level, other engagements. And then if we all believe that, they feel ready to go, we feel you're ready to go, then you can start doing your own engagements. Like I mentioned, we do them with co-speakers. So we're not just throwing you out there on your own. I like to match people up with tenured speakers when they first start, so that there is someone there who really knows how everything should go and be prepared for dealing with, whatever may happen. But it's not a formal certification process of any sort. And then once speakers are ready to go, it really depends on their personal schedules in terms of what kind of assignments they're able to fulfill. If you can do assignments during the workday, that's great. You might be able to do things in the school system. You might be able to do business activities when people are having us in either online or in person. But we also have engagements that are in the evening. Sometimes public libraries are often in the evening. We also do on the weekends when we're talking to OWL classes, which are Our Whole Life classes for UU and UCC churches. These are youth classes, kind of their sexuality program. And so those are usually on the weekends. And some people really love doing that because, again, it's youth oriented, and it's a very fun environment. So lots of different kind of style of, it depends on the style of the engagement where you can fit your schedule to that.
And then a follow-up question. Does your organization connect us with possible clients after training? I'm a professional speaker already and speak with Fortune 100 client ERGs on LGBTQ plus inclusion. Hi, Sarah. I didn't know who SS was. It's Sarah Scala. Hi.
Well, not really. I mean, what we do is we are the people who are like, I'm the person who is in contact with the clients. And so I would do the setups for all of the speakers themselves. You're not responsible for finding assignments or doing any of the administrative work. That'll come through me. But it sounds interesting, though, that the work that you are doing already. So if I'm intrigued and interested to see if it was something that could overlap with the kind of things that you do.
I will connect.
Yeah.
I'll connect the two of you. There's another question in the Q&A. When is the training and how long?
The next training is coming up on Saturday, April 9th. It is an all-day training. So basically it starts at 9 o'clock. We actually 8:30 to 9, we do a light breakfast for folks. We start the program at about 9. It goes till about 6 o'clock. So it's a long day. We provide lunch and snacks, refreshments all day. Wait, was there another question a part of that?
Sorry, let me just open that up again. No, when is the training and how long?
Okay.
So April 9th, all day.
April 9th. Yep. And so you can look at speakoutboston.org if you want to see the whole, all of the details about it. You can register there. I also see, is the work volunteer or paid? So this work is volunteer. We do try and cover some expenses for people, especially if it is a burden for folks. We try and cover transportation costs if that is something. And sometimes we can manage some food costs as well, depending on what the assignment is. Because sometimes people, let's say if you're going to a school and you're doing 3 or 4 classes in a row, we try and cover some expenses there so that you can get lunch, that kind of thing. Great questions.
All right, and Sarah says this sounds great. It's a great organization. I have followed the work for a long time. Harley also has things to say, clearly. So thank you for all of the work that you do.
Oh, you bet. This has been wonderful. Thank you for giving us a platform to talk to people. I really do encourage people, if it sounds of interest, please email me. ELLYN is my name, Ellen, at speakoutboston.org.
I'll put that in chat, Ellen, so folks can just do a quick
great.
Paste. Okay, so there's Ellen's email, and there's a note from Sean. Thank you, Ellen, Joseph, and Christy, and the whole Speak Out team for doing what you do. There's nothing as powerful as a personal story. Keep up the great work. Thank you, thank you.
Nice. All right.
Any other questions, folks? Pop them quickly into the into the chat or into Q&A before we let them go. But while we give folks a couple of seconds to ask anything else that they might have questions on, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being a part of our chamber. Thank you for the work that you do. So important, particularly in the environment that we're in right now. I think it can be complicated to even have the bandwidth to tell stories sometimes. And so having folks who are trained and who dedicate their time and who dedicate the emotional connection effort that it takes to have these conversations is just so important. So thank you personally for doing that work. And it looks like folks don't have any more questions. So
yeah. All right.
Thank you again. We will post this on our YouTube channel and share it with the rest of the membership. And I hope to see you all again soon.
All right. Take care.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.